Welcome back, folks, to another Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. Tom and I today are going to talk about how do you write about the people that work for your company, the team, the executive team, the people who are in the front lines. How do you write about them? How do you showcase them on your website? Well, Tom, I think you can probably share and enlighten us how important it is to be able to say, hey, these are the people that work with us.
The internet has changed so much about how we think about people. If you think about this from just a big perspective first, when I was growing up, back in the 90s and so forth, people had a real private life. You really didn't know anything about anyone you met until you really had a chance to sit down with them, go to coffee, and experience their life from their perspective. But now you can, through Facebook and social media, you can learn so much about people's interests, everything that they're about, before you even meet them. And then if you do have a chance to meet them, you have common interest right away. And so what the internet is doing, I think, is changing their perception of what to expect from your knowledge of people. My son just went off to his third year of college, and he ended up with a new roommate again this year. And I don't know if you remember, Glenn, when you would go to college and you wonder, oh my gosh, what's my roommate going to be like? Well, that doesn't exist now for kids anymore. They really know their roommate before they meet them. And in fact, they may have not even had a conversation, but they can feel like they know them. So what does this mean for business and business marketing? Well, the upside is people need to get to know you through your website as well and through your business activities as well. They need to get to know who you are as a professional, right? And you also have to let them look at the downside if they don't know you. If they don't know who you are and they don't know what you're about, what's the downside of that? Well, I think it's a lack of trust.
Right.
I think it's a lack of honesty and genuineness about the business itself. And so it's almost like the downsides of not doing it, which used to be people didn't care. People didn't care. They'd say, well, he's a private person, right? Don't have to post that information, or we don't need to know who that is. But now the downsides of that outweigh the positives, and that's happened because of how the world's opened up with the internet. And so strategically, we have to know about you. You've got to be able to talk about yourself.
And it's important. What's really, really important is, especially, I don't think it's as important from an e-commerce standpoint. From obviously, if you're dealing with returns, it's great to know if you're going to be on the phone talking, hey, here's pictures of all of our frontline people. If you call us, these are the people that are picking up the phone. I think that's awesome. This is key to service-based businesses where people do business with the people they like and the people they trust.
Right.
And that's really it. And if they can be able to go online and say, this is what the person looks like, this is what their hobbies are, can I relate to this person? Is this the kind of person I want to do business with?
Right, and it's strategic too, because I know that when I talk to clients about doing this, a lot of times they'll say things like, well, what do I post about myself? And I don't think people will find me that interesting. And what do I do when key people leave my company? Well, you have to deal with all those things. You have to find out what's important to website users to know about you. And yes, when people leave your company, you have to remove them or put a notice up saying so-and-so is no longer with us. We wish them the best of luck in their new venture and so forth. This kind of openness and honesty and kind of genuineness is so important to building trust online right now. And also, when there isn't kind of a face behind the company and a story of a person or a group of people behind a company, then what are users left with? Where they're left with, is this a real company? What are their intentions for me? Where are they located? Where is what's the people side behind this business? And if your competitors do this better than you do, then once again people will gravitate to that, because in a lot of ways people are your competitive advantage. Even a product company, service company, doesn't matter. People are your competitive advantage, and if you're hiding those people or you're not properly telling their story, and when I say this, you have to hear this right, properly telling their story, then you're withholding your competitive advantage from potential customers and from the world in general. So it's real important.
Well, it's just something I ran across the website. I wish I could remember what it was, but since this is probably a negative example of what not to do, it's probably better I didn't remember it. But it was a company I was interested in. I was researching them for some business that I needed them to do. And I went to the About Us. I want to know, well, tell me about the company. I want to know who's behind it. Where's the founder? Why did they start the company? At least something. I'm looking for some information. So I click the About Us, and it says, we're located in Evanston, Illinois, and we've been around since 1985. And it was all we. It was nothing about, it was just, here's what we do. It was all the boilerplate copy that we used to see on home pages about 10 years ago. That's all it was on the About Us. It didn't say anything about leadership or any of that about the company. And I was really disappointed.
All right,
and
great.
and so which is a little different from last week. I was at a conference for the Business Marketing Association, and Marcus Sheridan was speaking, and he was bringing that out about really making sure your website showcases how you solve the client's problem, or your customer's problem. What do you solve, and is that on your website? And one of the things he brought out was there's a gal by the name of Krista Catrola, and she is a CMO of Block Imaging, and they do refurbished MRI machines and a lot of medical devices, refurbish them and sell them to people who either don't have the money or the geographic location that may need something that they don't have $150,000 to go buy a machine. And she has a very, very interesting bio on the Block Imaging site. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. Let me see if I can do a little screen share here and see if we can pull this up. So that way everybody with us watching can see. So pull this up here. Is that coming across? You see that over there, Tom?
Yes, it's up now.
Okay, so she's the Senior VP of Marketing for Block Imaging. And if you look here, this website address is info.blockimaging.com/Krista-Catrola, which is Kotrla. And really what she says is she's be a warrior of enthusiasm, believe in making a difference, unleash the brilliance of an inspired team, accomplishing something that matters. Hi, I'm Krista Catrola, Senior Vice President of Marketing for Block Imaging. Since 2003, it's been my distinct privilege to work with a wonderful team of people passionate about helping hospitals, radiology departments, imaging centers, orthopedic surgeons, and clinics around the world extend the life of their imaging equipment. And so she talks about all these little things, and then at the very end it's I wear a lot of plaid shirts, and her picture has a little plaid design on it. So it's one of those things that you can go back in and really see, hey, how are you affecting people when they're coming to your website? Like, so for her, it's like, oh, this is a person. She really didn't put a whole lot of personal information on there. She likes plaid shirts. Now, she also has her own blog. She does a lot of marketing, and as a CMO, she's got a lot of other things that she has irons in the fire, and you can definitely Google her to find out more. But what really kind of got to me was she was able to say, hey, this is how our company solves our customers' concerns and challenges, and I'm fully behind it. And here's a picture. This is what I look like. These are things I believe in. And then, of course, you can Google her name and cross-reference it too. So that's another piece. So what can we take? What can our watchers and our viewers and our viewers and our listeners, what can they take about kind of what Krista has done and kind of modify it into their own websites without it sounding like typical brochure copy?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there was a little bit of brochure copy in her page as well. I think what's important to know is that you want a combination of facts and the story. Like, for example, the years of experience in a certain field. If she has it, if she's been in that field for 15 years, that's a great little bit of information to put there. And then the facts have to be covered. And then also the story of what is her passion and why she's in that industry, and what is the end result of her passion. Like, she loves the medical industry, she loves helping people. Maybe she had a relative that had a problem that was solved with an early scan or an early test result or something. That kind of story tells people why you're passionate about something. And I think that when you start to get this information on the web page and it ties into the needs of the users, then you're properly showing what your competitive advantage is, and I think users will be excited to meet this person and talk to them. It's really what the web is all about. And that was a good positive example. I have a negative example from one of our clients who has a very progressive medical company, and they put some amazing thought into how they approach their business and what they're doing, but the CEO, owner of the business, does not want to be shown anywhere on the website. And I just think that there's a void there, that it makes the business less passionate and less real when he's not on the site and when we don't see his information, his bio, and a professional photo. And even if you have his team on the website, right, and he's got a great team, but he's not there, that's a void that's missing. And I think it's very important.
Now, is there a way that somebody would be able to manage that? I mean, obviously, there's first thing that comes to mind. Oh, he's in the witness relocation program. Those are kind of the first things that I'm like, all right, why would somebody hide? I guess that's the real thing. If somebody's running into that issue and you can't get executive buy-in, let's say you're working with an organization, what can you do?
Well, I think that he doesn't want to be on the site because he's a humble individual, actually. He's not looking to put the spotlight on him in any way. And I think that there's ways to have your bio and your information on the web without putting a spotlight on yourself. The internet has put the spotlight on everybody. So because the spotlight's on everybody now, no one's standing out, if you follow me. And we can all be these micro celebrities and so forth on the web. But what does stand out is what you're passionate about, the facts behind the information about your life, and your story, your personal story, and how that relates to the message of your company. And that's what users want to see when they're on a website and they go to the About Us page.
Now, is that client of yours that you're talking about, is he the brand? I guess that's going to be the big question. I mean, is he the brand? Like, without him, does that company fold?
It's a really good question, and the best way to answer that is in your strategic plan before you even put a website up. In this case, no, he's not the brand. He is the person behind the brand, and he's building the brand and the company, but he is not the brand, and the brand will continue, without him, right? But if you're the brand and you are the individual, then obviously you have to showcase yourself. But it's real important to have that strategically, differentiated before you even build your website. And what Glenn is referring to is that if you're a consultant, and your business is John Smith Consulting, then John Smith is a brand, and John Smith has to be featured. But if you're Apple Computer, at some point the person behind the brand will no longer be there. Like Steve Jobs is no longer there, but Apple continues in a little bit of a different form, but they continue. And so you have to decide that.
And there's an example there with Apple, because I was actually on the website last night looking at the videos how they were using their new iPhone 6 videos. And they've got their VPs of product development. They have their engineers in the video talking about the products. You get to see what they look like and what they're passionate about. Now, they're doing them. They don't hire an actor to come in and do it. They say, hey, here's the product. This is what we worked on. This is what the team did.
That's right. And one of their key engineers who actually worked on the iPhone, I think, is still working with Apple. So even though Steve Jobs isn't there are still people behind the products that are still working at Apple, and I believe his name was Ivy, was his last name. And so he's still at Apple, and in fact, if you want to go learn about him, he's actually starting to develop his own kind of mythology around him because of his impact on the Apple products. So, the brand and the person can certainly mesh on and off, but the key thing is that the story of the people behind the brand should always be there, and you have to realize that this information needs to be updated. It'll change over time. You'll have to, on occasion, do updated photography, and I think that consistent professional photography is real important. Whatever you decide to do, like the example that you showed, Glenn, we only saw half her face, so they were being kind of artsy. Right. Well, then you have to do that with everybody else too. You don't want to show her face like that and then have somebody else on a mountain bike or somebody else, outside or in an office or whatever. So you have to make it consistent. But this kind of stuff is just part of your website marketing and very important.
There's another one. I mean, let's go. The next piece is obviously photos. What types of photos to use, and I do have another example. This is actually a friend of mine who has a company called C3. It's C3, and they do meetings and events. And I'll show you right here. This is how they list their team. If you go to Our Team, they go through and can you see that over there on your end, Tom?
Yes.
Okay, so you have all of these folks: Chris, Kathy, Christy, Megan, Prescott, Lori, Dominique, Grace, Dave, and Kelly. And they have all of them together. And you can go in and look at each one and say, hey, let's see if we can click on it. Well, can I click on them? It doesn't look like I can click on them, but you can see.
It would be nice if you could click on them and see a personal bio and information and background, and it is just a way to be open about your business, and I think it builds trust in the users. It also builds trust for first-time users who are trying to understand your company and get to know you.
Yes.
And it's easy to refer too, because someone can say, I work with C3, and Kelly over at C3 is wonderful, and then so-and-so will go, Kelly, C3, let me go. They'll look up the web page, they'll see Kelly, they'll click her bio, then they'll make the call, and it's a smooth transition.
It also helps for business. I don't think people really realize that. How often do we go out and meet people at conferences? And if you know what they look like, you can go to their website and you go, okay, I already know I need to meet this person, this is what they look like. It's almost just another way to do research, and it's easier for people to do business with you.
Absolutely.
Do you have any? What other ideas do you have for photos?
Well, the thing about photos is you just keep in mind, photos is also they're also branding for your company. Definitely have captions with your photos. We've seen photos that have been taken that look so good of the people at the company that they look like stock images. And if there's no caption there, it looks just like a stock image. So make sure you have a caption, and make sure you're very aware of how you mix stock photography with photos of people at your business, and as much as possible keep it to photos of people that work at your company, and then it's very straightforward, but keep the captions there as well.
And if you've got a good enough photographer, the great thing is they can come in and they can spend a day at your office and capture photos of everybody and people actually working in the office.
That's
so
right.
Instead of having to, here's your typical office scene that you purchased on iStockPhoto.com, you can go in and say, no, these are the people. Hey, look, hey, there's Tom. He's having a meeting right now with a client. So you actually have the images of the people in the office working. When do you change people's bios up? And how often should that be updated? I mean, obviously, aside from when the people leave your company or someone gets hired on, are there other times to update?
Well, I think that you're probably not going to update very often, but I think at least once or twice a year you want to look at those bios, and if there's been significant events, make sure that they're updated. Whether someone's won an award or someone's completed a certification or some milestone in their life, that should be updated.
Wonderful. Well, what are our key action items this time, since we're wrapping this thing up here?
Yes, absolutely. So what I think that is important is that you make a list of the key people in your company that you feel should be featured on the website. And sometimes you won't have everybody there. I mean, that's just the way it is, but it's at least the leadership team behind the success of the company needs to be featured. You may have to hire an outside writer to help you with bios. I know that when I've asked people to write bios about themselves, it's not always the best content. But an outside writer, just like an outside photographer will do this, can keep the content consistent and professional, which is going to be real important. And I think you should, just like you mentioned, Glenn, have action shots. One of the goals for Intuitive Websites is to eventually have some action shots of us. Now, it's not easy to do. First of all, you have to get everybody in the same room and in the same building, which is hard for us because we're all over the state pretty much. And then you have to have a photographer set up and schedule all of that. But I think it's worth it, and I think this information should be on the About Us page. And I think that you should also include historical information about the company and historical information about the founders of the company going back to the beginning. So that's part of the constant updating and story that you're telling about your business.
Well, folks, thanks again for joining us, and also want to put it back out there is if there's a certain topic that you'd like Tom and I to cover, make sure you shoot us an email at info@intuitivewebsites.com. Thanks so much for joining us again.